When police arrived at the Dawson home, they walked into a scene of unimaginable horror. Karen Dawson, a beloved mother and pillar of her community, was found dead in her bedroom, the victim of a vicious attack. As investigators began unraveling the mystery, their findings took a shocking turn. Her 19-year-old daughter, Lily, was the one responsible. What could possibly drive a daughter to murder her own mother? The answer lay buried in a secret so dark, Lily was willing to kill to keep it hidden. The Dawson family seemed like the kind of household anyone would envy. Karen Dawson was a single mother who poured her heart into raising her two children, Lily and Max. She worked tirelessly at her job while still finding time to volunteer at local shelters and attend school events. To neighbors and friends, Karen was a picture of grace and strength, managing life's challenges with unwavering determination. Her daughter, Lily, at first glance, appeared to be a reflection of her mother's hard work and love. A bright and ambitious teenager, Lily excelled academically and seemed destined for success. She was a familiar face at school, known for her sharp mind and friendly demeanor, though some noticed a quiet, guarded side to her. Beneath the surface, however, the family's dynamic was far from perfect. Karen had recently grown worried about Lily's increasingly secretive behavior. Once close, their bond had begun to fray as Lily spent more time away from home and became distant. Karen noticed Lily's mood swings and a troubling pattern of lying that she hadn't seen before. Lily was spending hours locked away in her room or out late without explanation. Attempts to talk were met with deflection or outright denial, and Karen, despite her best efforts, found herself unable to break through her daughter's walls. As weeks turned into months, Karen's unease deepened. She had raised her children to value honesty and trust, yet something in Lily's life had changed. The once open and affectionate girl she knew now seemed like a stranger. Matters took a darker turn when Karen stumbled upon something she was never meant to see. While tidying Lily's room, she discovered a journal tucked beneath her mattress. Out of concern, she opened it, hoping to find some insight into what her daughter was going through. What she found shook her to the core. The journal detailed a secret relationship Lily was hiding, one with a much older man, a man Karen recognized as someone with a troubling past. The entries also hinted at other alarming activities, including drug use and theft. Karen was heartbroken and terrified. Her maternal instinct to protect Lily kicked in, and she resolved to confront her, determined to shield her daughter from further harm. But Karen underestimated just how far Lily was willing to go to keep her secrets buried. Karen couldn't shake the weight of what she had read in Lily's journal. The revelation that her daughter was involved with a much older man was enough to set off every alarm in her mind. The man, a teacher in the community, was someone Karen had crossed paths with before, though she never imagined he could be capable of such manipulation. But the journal revealed even more troubling details, hints of illegal activity that pointed to Lily's deeper involvement in a dangerous world. References to stolen goods, late-night meetings, and mentions of drug use painted a picture Karen never thought she'd see. Her daughter, the straight-A student with endless potential, was in over her head. Karen knew she couldn't ignore what she had found. She tried to approach the situation delicately, starting with subtle questions about Lily's life and the people she was spending time with. But Lily was quick to shut her down, growing defensive and evasive. When Karen finally confronted her about the journal, the conversation exploded into a heated argument. Lily denied everything at first, claiming her mother had no right to invade her privacy. But as Karen pressed on, demanding answers, Lily's denials turned into panic. Karen made it clear that she wasn't going to let this slide. She was prepared to go to the police, the school board, and anyone else who needed to be involved. In her mind, it was the only way to protect Lily and put an end to the dangerous path she was on. To Lily, however, Karen's actions felt like a betrayal. She saw her mother not as someone trying to help, but as a threat to her fragile world. The older man had convinced her that he cared about her, that they were in it together, and Karen's interference was a direct attack on the life she thought she wanted. Fear and desperation began to cloud Lily's judgment. She wasn't just worried about the relationship being exposed. She was terrified of the legal consequences of her actions. If Karen went through with her threats, Lily could lose everything: her freedom, her reputation, her future. In her panic, Lily began to see only one solution. She couldn't let her mother expose the truth. The dark, chaotic emotions that had been building for months finally reached a breaking point. Lily's need to protect her secret became stronger than her love for her mother. The night everything changed began like any other. Karen was home, finishing up dinner, while Lily retreated to her room, barely saying a word. The tension between them had grown unbearable after their argument, with Karen refusing to back down from her promise to take action. She'd spent the day gathering her thoughts, planning to reach out to the authorities and the school the following morning. As much as it pained her, Karen believed exposing the situation was the only way to save her daughter. Lily, on the other hand, was spiraling into a state of panic and dread. Every ticking moment felt like a countdown to the inevitable ruin of her life. The final confrontation started when Karen knocked on Lily's door, asking to talk. Lily didn't respond at first, but Karen persisted, her voice firm but calm. When Lily finally opened the door, Karen stepped inside, holding the journal. She told Lily she loved her and wanted to help, but reiterated that she couldn't stay silent. Karen explained the danger of the relationship and the consequences Lily could face. Her words were measured, but Lily heard them as threats. To her, every sentence felt like a nail in the coffin of the life she was desperately clinging to. The argument escalated quickly, their voices echoing through the quiet house. Max, asleep in his room, didn't hear the growing chaos. Lily begged her mother to let it go, swearing she could handle the situation on her own. But Karen stood her ground, her resolve unshaken. She told Lily that she couldn't ignore the truth, that as her mother, it was her duty to step in. In Karen's mind, she was protecting Lily from danger and making the hard choice that any loving parent would. But to Lily, it was a betrayal that couldn't be forgiven. In a moment of desperation and rage, Lily grabbed an object nearby, something heavy enough to do harm. Her mind was clouded by fear, anger, and the overwhelming need to silence her mother before the truth could come out. The details of what happened next were brutal and swift. Karen never had the chance to defend herself. As the realization of what she had done set in, Lily froze, staring at the lifeless body of the woman who had only ever wanted the best for her. The room fell silent, but Lily's mind raced, her dark secret now buried under a new, even darker one. In the aftermath of Karen's death, the house fell into an eerie, suffocating silence. Lily stood frozen in the room, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Her hands trembled as she stared at her mother's lifeless body, blood pooling beneath her. It didn't feel real. None of it did. Panic surged through her as the weight of her actions began to sink in. She had gone too far, and there was no way to take it back. Her mother was gone, and now she was trapped in the nightmare she had created. Lily's first instinct was to cover her tracks. She rushed to clean the room, wiping down surfaces and trying to erase any trace of what had happened. Her thoughts raced as she tried to come up with a plan, but the reality of the situation was overwhelming. What would she tell Max? What if the neighbors heard something? What if the police came? She felt like she was drowning, suffocated by the fear of being discovered. She dragged Karen's body into the hallway, struggling under the weight, and began wrapping it in a blanket. Tears streamed down her face as she worked, her sobs echoing in the empty house. She didn't want to look at her mother's face, didn't want to face the reality of what she had done. Every time she glanced down, guilt and horror clawed at her, but she pushed it aside. She couldn't afford to break down, not yet. Lily decided to move the body to the basement, thinking it would buy her time to figure out her next move. She dragged Karen down the stairs, each step feeling like an eternity. Once she had hidden the body, she went back upstairs and began scrubbing the floor where the attack had taken place. She worked frantically, her hands shaking as she tried to erase the bloodstains. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled the air, mixing with the metallic tang of blood. As the night wore on, exhaustion began to set in, but Lily couldn't stop. She knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed something was wrong. She rehearsed what she would say if anyone asked about her mother. Lies formed in her mind, but none of them felt believable. The pressure was unbearable, and deep down, she knew the truth would come out eventually. But for now, all she could do was try to hold it together and hope she could stay one step ahead of the consequences. The days that followed Karen's murder were a blur of fear and paranoia for Lily. She kept up appearances as best as she could, pretending that everything was fine, even as her world crumbled around her. She told Max that their mother had gone away for a few days to deal with personal matters, a vague excuse that her younger brother accepted without question. But every time he asked when Karen would return, Lily's stomach twisted in knots. The lies were piling up, and keeping them straight became harder with each passing hour. Lily knew she couldn't hide the truth forever. The neighbors noticed Karen's sudden absence and began asking questions. Friends from the shelter where Karen volunteered started leaving voicemails, concerned that she hadn't shown up for her shifts. Lily answered some of the calls, pretending her mother was out of town, but the excuses felt hollow. Her anxiety grew with each interaction, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. She barely slept, her nights consumed by the nightmare of what she had done and the fear of being caught. Then came the knock on the door. It was the police. A neighbor had reported Karen missing, and the officers were there to conduct a welfare check. Lily's heart pounded as she opened the door, forcing a smile and trying to seem calm. She explained, as casually as she could, that her mother was away visiting a friend. The officers didn't seem convinced. They asked to look around the house, and Lily had no choice but to let them in. Her hands shook as they moved from room to room, their footsteps echoing through the halls. When they reached the basement, Lily's fragile composure began to crack. One of the officers noticed the faint smell of cleaning chemicals lingering in the air. He glanced at Lily, whose face had gone pale. They descended the stairs, and within moments, the truth she had tried so desperately to hide was uncovered. Karen's body was found wrapped in the blanket, hidden but not forgotten. Lily was arrested on the spot, her protests and tears falling on deaf ears. As she sat in the back of the police car, staring out the window, the weight of her actions finally crushed her. The secret she had killed to protect was meaningless now. In the end, she had lost everything: her mother, her freedom, and any hope for the future. The life she had tried so hard to preserve had been destroyed by her own hand.